everybody, welcome back to my channel for those who are returning, and welcome to any new subscribers that may be visiting for the first time. I am actually in the middle of decoupaging my tags for my cards for my laces. I haven't actually posted this video, but it should go up before this one does. So, and I've run out of my DIY Mod Podge. So I'm about to make some more and thought I'd quickly turn the camera back on so I can show you what I do. Now, it's not my recipe. I have played with mixed media, and when I was doing that, I went hunting for a recipe I could use. And I honestly cannot remember whose recipe I'm using, so my apologies for that. If I happen to find it, I will link that channel, but off the top of my head, I watch so many videos on different people's ideas, and I kind of had some criteria that I wanted to tick for myself when I made the Mod Podge. So anyway, I'll just show you my process, and if I find the link for who inspired this, I will definitely share. But if not, a shout out to that person for sharing in the first place, because it's been such a great product to have on hand. I do still use the brand name Mod Podge for some of my projects. I tend to use the DIY Mod Podge more for decoupage and that sort of thing. So, but again, really handy to have on hand. Anyway, so when I made the Mod Podge, I wanted it to be acid free. Now, I believe you can use I believe you can use any PVA glue, but I wanted mine to be acid free, so I went hunting for an acid free PVA. Now, I've mentioned Portercraft as being readily available in my country before, so I found this at a local, it's a little cheap shop, Bargain Buys I think it's called, and it's only $6.50 for 500 mils, so very affordable. Now, the measurements that I was using, and as you can see, I wrote it on my jar, so it's actually a Cotty's jam jar. I wrote it on my jar for future reference, and it started to wash off when so in between each batch, I do wash my jar completely on the inside so that I pick up any residue. You do end up with a filmy residue where the glue starts to dry. So I cleaned my jar out, and this started to come off. And that got me thinking to the fact that I didn't want to have to measure 240 mil of PVA every time I made this. I've got a funny feeling that the smaller bottles of this glue come in that size or very close to it, which made it quite easy. But as with most things, it's more affordable to buy the larger product. It doesn't tend to be quite as pricey. I don't know what the difference is. I'm sorry, I can't tell you. I don't remember, but it is slightly more affordable, I think, to buy it in a larger bottle. So what I did was I marked out my water. I measured my water, which I don't actually remember what the measurements are. I'm sorry. I may have it written down, so if I find that, I'll put it in the description below this video. I marked out my water. I pretty much, the first time I did it, I put the 250 mils of glue in and then filled it up with the glue. Filled it up with the water to sort of almost the top of the jar. And then I wanted to get a rough idea of glue to water ratio. So I measured the water in, and I've marked that with the top of the tape and just with a little line and marked that. And then I fill my glue to the top of the tape here. And the tape doesn't wash off. I mean, I haven't scrubbed it really hard, but it's just masking tape that I've used, which also came from the same cheap shop. So I've just used the top edge of that as my guide, so it actually makes it a really quick process when I need to refill. I don't have to mess around with measurements and that sort of thing. And if there's a little bit of glue left in this bottle, I can save that over for the next time that I need to use it. And with the water, going with the acid free, I actually buy distilled water and I use that. So it's entirely up to you. You could use tap water if you wanted to, but I prefer to use the distilled water just to try and prolong the life of whatever I'm using it on. So literally all I do is use my tape marks as my measure. And as I said, I will try and find the quantities for you and pop them into the description so that you can go ahead and make your own. But I just find it really, really handy to have on in my supplies. And I forgot these bottles come with a, oh, there we go. And I do want to try and get that little bit out. I don't know if you can see there's a little film across the top. And that's what the inside of your jar will look like when you've been using the Mod Podge for a while. It tends to dry a little bit tacky like that. It doesn't go really hard because the water that's in there prevents that from happening. But it is a little bit tacky and a little bit stringy, but it does wash out quite easily. And then I literally just fill this with my glue. And it does take quite a bit, so almost there. I think that should do quite nicely. Just cleaning the top of the bottle before I put the stopper back in. And so that should give me enough to make another batch. And because of the size of the jar that I've used, I do have a little bit of space, about that much space at the top of the jar. So once I pop my lid on, and I do put a little bit of baking paper or parchment paper, as some people call it, around the lid just to help seal it, and just give it a shake. And you can adjust the water to the thickness of your glue. These are measurements that I came up with. The glue I'm using, the PVA glue, I don't know whether you noticed when I was pouring it in, is fairly runny already. Sorry, already. Much better. So I didn't need as much water, I don't think, as it was suggested in some of the recipes. You're basically just making it to the consistency that you want it. So if you want a thicker Mod Podge, by all means, you can cut back on the amount of water to suit your needs. But that's literally all I'm using to do my decoupage with my little cottage jam jar. So I hope some of you find that useful, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos. Thank you so much for joining me, and happy crafting, everybody. Bye for now.